Perfect. And I'm going to hand it over to Alyssa, who has just a quick little update for us and a check-in. Alyssa.
Thanks, Maria. Good
Yeah.
afternoon, everyone. I hope you are getting to enjoy the sunshine. I was dealing with the sunbeams in my last couple meetings, which is a nice problem to have. I wanted to just follow up with you all.
Ok, está bien.
Oh,
Perfecto. Muy bien. Entonces nos vemos el jueves. Gracias, Marisela. Ahí te llamo si se me ocurre otra
hey,
cosa.
Karina. Oh, there we go. Perfect. I wanted to just quickly share a message that we sent to all staff earlier today regarding the article, and then just share a couple reflections and hold space to hear from you all. And if there's anything that you need or questions you have that I might be able to answer. So I'll go through this and spend a couple minutes here, and then would love to hear more from you. So also, it feels weird reading a statement out loud, so I'm just going to acknowledge that. But I just wanted to share that, and what I've shared with staff is that it's really important to me that we're an agency that actually is able to live out our values, and especially with all the work that we did with you, with community partners, families, childcare providers, and our staff to actually define what our values would be as DELC. This feels particularly important. And we identified values around equity, integrity, and trust as a couple of them. And with that, it's my responsibility to make sure that if any staff are not feeling valued, seen, heard, or have a sense of belonging, that is mine to own. We are making sure that staff know that if they have concerns about any inappropriate behaviors that are taking place in the office, that they can immediately report that behavior to their immediate supervisor, to any other manager in our agency, to our HR team, or to the Department of Administrative Services Chief Human Resource Office for the state, or to myself as the agency director for DELC. And any feedback and staff concerns you receive are taken really seriously. And so with that, I wanted to follow up and provide a really high level kind of snapshot of what we've done and really plan to do in order to keep prioritizing equity and inclusive culture across the agency. So with that in mind, in the year leading up to and since we've launched DELC, we established the Social Equity Office, which for those of you who've been around for a while, you know that our equity office used to be an office of one. And so it's been really exciting to actually create an office and have multiple roles. We've rolled out ethics, equity, expectations, and quarterly feedback trainings to all managers across the agency. We developed and implemented the Certified Center licensing rules, which revised, first of all, plain language, which has been a goal for a long time for our agency, but also included anti-bias education requirements. We submitted our first affirmative action plan as DELC and our draft DEI action plan to the Department of Administrative Services. That final plan will be done in June. And we've also piloted and launched our first bias awareness and management training. And there's so much more to do. But for an agency that's 9 months old, I really am proud of the equity work we've done and will continue to do. And related to that, what I've named to staff and want to be naming to partners is it's really important to me that we're honoring planned vacations for staff. And with that in mind, I will be working very closely with our social equity director, Kofi Desu, when he returns, but really protecting that space for him. And in the meantime, a reflection that I've had throughout this process has been that we need to do a better job of not just sharing what we're doing, because we can definitely improve upon that, but also sharing more of our why. And so in terms of training, I wanted to share that we were very intentional when we chose to start rolling out trainings to managers first. This approach is outlined in our draft DEI action plan, but it's making sure that managers are well prepared to support their teams. And we recognize that we can't expect staff to be accountable if we don't have managers that are accountable and have the tools they need to support their teams. So that bias management and awareness training is currently available to all staff, and we're encouraging folks to sign up. But one of the reasons it's not mandatory is we know the importance of equity trainings in particular being safe spaces, and that when you mandate a training and folks are showing up in an unwilling space, that can actually perpetuate continued harms for other staff participating, and instead wanting to really lean on peers promoting and emphasizing the importance of trainings like this. And that's something we'll be revisiting as the year goes on. But we also recognize that we can't build a culture in a silo, just as we engage you and other partners in defining our mission, vision, and values. We can't expect our culture to just be developed in a silo as well. And so our leadership team is going to be launching a series of listening sessions. These are going to start internally, but in the months ahead, we will be doing deeper engagement to make sure that we're holding space for ideas and experiences and what folks want to see in DELC and see from DELC. And for me personally, I continue to remain committed to being accessible and open to feedback and constantly listening and learning as we really build this agency culture and make sure that it is a space where all of our employees feel valued, seen, and heard, and find this sense of belonging. I'll share too, for me, a couple of the things that I'm kind of excited about is our approach to the bias awareness and management training. And I think Kofi is so brilliant in this space and recognizing that we all have our biases. And the first step is identifying them and being aware that they're there, and then figuring out how to manage them, as opposed to expecting that they will just completely go away without a lot of intentional work. The other thing that I think has been great is this intentional approach of stair stepping and starting with making sure we're growing that understanding and providing the tools, and then rolling out more resources. For example, the social equity team is currently designing a social equity and practice training that will be available in the summer or fall for staff. And so a lot more work to do, a lot of work that's been done, and I just wanted to share some of that with you all and answer questions that I can, and would really love to share any reflections or feedback that you feel comfortable sharing with me in this space.
Hi, Alyssa. This is Lisa, and I'll, because I just can't stand silence, so I just have to fill it. First of all, I just want to say thank you for being with us today and sharing your response and your reaction to the news article. Really appreciate that, and appreciate the positivity in which you're moving forward to make some changes. I apologize, I popped in a little bit late because I was tying up another meeting, but I'm curious, I think one thing that caught my attention was the information shared in the article about from Ann Morrison's responses to the hubs and the hub system and all of that. And so and maybe you've already covered it, and I apologize, but I'm curious about some of that conversation and how that is kind of guiding some of your leadership. And I know that we've got our build work that we're doing at the council and DELC, and I'm hoping that that will just come right front and center into those conversations. But just would love when it's appropriate. I know there are other things that you were talking about in terms of the training and the responses as it relates to equity and diversity, but I just would love to also have a conversation about that.
Yeah, absolutely, Lisa, you did not miss that. Yeah, so I think so I'll say for me, like I read if a memo comes to me, I'm going to read it, and especially as someone that's been with ELD or DELC in some fashion for a very long time, like it's very personal to me. And so we read her memo when we received it, and I think we've already started employing some of the recommendations that are in there. I think with Preschool Promise and coordinated enrollment in particular, I know we talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago when we were talking about Preschool Promise reallocation, and I completely agree. I think there, especially as we've unearthed the difference between Exhibit D, Attachment D, that we've all referred to with the reallocation process versus that really massive spreadsheet that you all had to do. I think what we've found is a couple things. I would agree. I don't think enough of that work was used. I can't speak to what the urgency and timeline was for those plans as those staff are not here. I would say that Attachment D was the attempt to get at so much of the rich information you all worked really hard to collect and bring it into the procurement process within ODE's procurement structure. And now that we have our own procurement structure, the template we revamped and rolled out was sort of that modified approach. And so we know that the challenge of employing a tool that basically said, we're going to go down the list and anyone on the list is eligible, didn't work and oversaturated. And the work that I think we've done with this version of Attachment D really helps get at that. And I think we've already identified things that we really hope we can do next time. And so after we go through this process, I think it'll be really important for us to all do an after action and say, did the changes we make work? What still wasn't quite right? What really missed the mark or was an inappropriate correction? And what would have been really nice to see? We've been talking about the application, for example, and how do we make sure that we're not creating more administrative barriers? And for now, we're trying to balance, okay, do we keep troubleshooting the platform and seeing if this works, or do we roll it out because we know we have a timeline? And so that's a place where we'll want to say, was this a problem for you all? And I don't want to get into specifics because of the whole RFA rules thing, but I think, so I would agree that I think there's a lot we've already identified needs to be improved. I think we're starting to address those. Our hope is that this latest preschool promise reallocation process does a much better job of actually making sure hubs can tell us these are where the slots are needed. And if they don't go there, just hold them back for us. Do not give them to the next person just because they're ready. And we'll see how that pans out and what we need to do differently the next time around, especially if we are, hopefully able to see investments in actual expansion for next biennium. We really want to make sure we're dialed in to be more successful for another expansion round and not repeat what happened in 22.
Any other questions or wonderings for Alyssa?
I have a somehow related question, but not specifically to the article. Well, the article talks about predictable preschool promise issues, but my question is about OPK. It is my understanding that some providers are actually returning state OPK slots. So I really would like to know, Alicia, about how does that thing look like by region and by state, and what is the plan actually of DELC? Is DELC gonna do a reallocation, opening the OPK process to the mixed delivery and not just the existing partners? Is the funding gonna be used to enhance existing slots? Is it gonna use for coordinated enrollment? What this pool of money that you are sitting on, what is gonna happen? That's one of the things that I would like to know.
Yeah, great question, Begonia, and I'd be happy to come back with Gwen and the team. Right now, what we're doing is working very closely with the Office of Head Start and their timelines, because they have their own process for determining whether they're going to change funding or take federal slots away. And part of that process is whether the federal Head Start grantees are going to propose repurposing, converting to infant toddler slots, for example, if they think they can get to, all of those situations. And that is going to dictate what the feds decide to do. And then that will have implications for the state. And so we are preparing for a variety of options. I think the reality is the answer is going to vary depending on the region and what actions the feds take per site. And that So once we get through this process alongside the Federal Office of Head Start, we'll have a lot more information to share in terms of whether we are looking at opening beyond existing OPK grantees. But, you know, it's a topic of conversation. I think too, though, you know, one, we also want to be really clear about making sure we are continuing to promote Head Start and OPK and the important role that plays in community. And I know that this is an area of a lot of tension with OPK and between OPK and hubs in particular because of the coordinated enrollment function that we'll also be continuing to partner with to navigate and make sure as the Federal Office of Head Start makes their decisions and we start having to make our own, that we don't continue to promote this preschool promise versus OPK approach that we know has kind of been felt, at least in certain communities.
Renee, go ahead.
Good afternoon. I think that one of my, as a person in the regions, right? I think where I'm coming from is anything that is happening to DELC is happening to us, right? And by us, I don't just mean the early learning hubs, but I mean all programming that is affiliated with DELC. And we don't necessarily have control over the state narrative or the state action. And I was actually surprised that we didn't have local media calling us up. I was prepared for that and it didn't happen. And hopefully it was because we are just that many steps removed from DELC that local media might not have made that connection. But we know legislators make that connection. And we know that we are in a better place in early learning than we've ever been before. And that this kind of, I don't want to use the word distraction because obviously when we're talking about issues of equity, that it's not a distraction, but this work yet to be done, getting in the way of legislators believing that more investment in early learning is the right decision. And so I'm curious, I would just love to hear your thoughts on that, because it's really impacting all of the programming across the state.
Absolutely. So we actually prepared legislators for this. And so I reached out to a number of legislators that I had a relationship with. Kate Dennison, our government affairs director, reached out, and we also provided our statement to all legislative leadership, Senate Majority Office, House Majority Office, Senate Republican Office, and House Republican Office. And so they had the information. So we preempted as much as we could, knowing that we didn't exactly know it would be in the article. And then once it was out, the statement that we shared with staff, we also shared with legislators and really have been kind of affirming to reach out to us if they have questions, don't make assumptions. I think the other thing that was helpful in the calls we made in advance is several legislators took it upon themselves to flag it for their colleagues. We also took a bicameral and bipartisan approach so that there was kind of an awareness and understanding. And then some legislators actually said, hey, we know we're heading to some meetings. Can we share this at those tables? And so the response we've heard so far is thank you for letting us know. Thank you for sharing this. We'll reach out with questions. At this point, though, we've not gotten any questions or anything to indicate that there will be concern. That being said, you know, we know there's legislative days in end of May. And so there's a possibility that Representative Reynolds does want to talk about this at House Childcare or Human Services, but we also have a lot of standing check-ins with some of those key leaders to make sure they have multiple avenues of getting information and don't have to just rely on hearings to get that information. Thank you for that question, Renee. And if there's anything you all are needing, if you are getting questions, please let us know. We don't want you all it would be inappropriate for you all to have to speak to or answer to what's happening, especially in this case when it is internal, right? And so if you are getting questions, if there are needs coming up, let us know. You're also welcome to redirect them to Kate Gonsalves, our communications director, or myself. And we're happy to follow up. And Kate Dennison, especially if it's a legislator, we're happy to follow up with folks, and we don't want you to feel like you have to speak on our behalf. That wouldn't be fair to you all.
Any other questions, wonderings? With that, I think I would love Kate G to have a moment to introduce herself. I know that I don't think she's been in our space before. So Kate, I don't know if you want a moment just to do a quick introduction.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. Kate Gonsalves, she, her pronouns. I'm the new communications director. And I so appreciated your last question, Renee. I do feel like there's so much momentum right now, and we are, of course, focusing in on how to build a culture where everyone feels seen and valued and heard. And also, I really hope to build relationships with all of you to start elevating the work out in the field. We know tremendously powerful, impactful programming is being offered. It's making a huge difference in the lives of families across the state. These are important stories that need to be elevated so that legislators, again, to your point, hear about what is the impact on the ground out in community in every county across the state. And so my original intention was actually to meet with you all and offer my contact info in the event that you all at any point, if you want to reach out on either this topic or proactive storytelling at some point, we do want to start really elevating the impact of the work you all do day in, day out. And I think those heartstring stories really do move legislators and readers and folks across the state. So thank you for bringing up that question. And I'll go ahead and put my contact info in the chat. And I know Alyssa and Maria mentioned Kate Dennison. And so if at any point, any sort of public affairs related stuff, either Kate, we're here for you. Just don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Yes, and if other questions come through after this meeting, of course, during our check-ins or something you want to email me or just hop on a call, feel free to reach out to me and I will elevate those to Kate and Alyssa. So this is not just the only space. If you're an absorber and you need to just take it in and you think of other things that are happening, please feel free to reach out and I will be happy to speak with Alyssa or Kate as needed. So thank you, everyone. With that, we are just going to switch right on over to Gabby and Karina, who are going to be doing some engagement around our strategic plan.
Thanks, Maria. Hey, everyone. Karina and I are back with you all today. I actually can't believe we were here last month and we walked through the slides that had the 8 draft goals for the DELC strategic plan. And I can't remember if we went through all of the slides last time, but I do kind of just want to recap the goals with everybody because the activity that we want to do with everybody today is really just a chance to give folks the opportunity to give us any feedback on our current goals. And sorry, my mouse just died, so I have to do the mouse pad. And can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay. And I'll just go through. You all should have these slides, and I do think that we covered most of this information, but really just want to direct everybody to these next 3 slides. Right here, you'll see essentially the 13 high-level themes that really came out from all of the external partner and the internal conversations that Karina and I had. So you'll see things like increasing access to care, strengthening cross-sector relationships, expanding resources and programs. And then these next 2 slides have the 8 draft goals. And these aren't in any order. So I do want to flag that because we did get some questions about that. So 1 is really centered around access, 2, tribal sovereignty, 3, infants and toddlers. Goal 4 is really centered around workforce. 5 are cross-sector partnerships, and then goals 6, 7, and 8 are really more DELC operations oriented, whereas the first 5 are more policy and program oriented. And you all should have these slides, and I'm happy to drop them in the chat as well. These slides have the same 8 goals, and they kind of just tie some of the themes from that initial slide. And I do think we covered this. So I want to get into the activity portion, unless folks have any questions before we kind of get into it around any of the goals or the themes that we shared with you all. If you think that anything might have been missing from just that initial information that we shared. Karina, anything to add?
No, thanks, Gabby. I was just checking to see if folks had questions. It's good to see you all again. I know we're trying to like be loyal to Maria and the team around our time that we're going to take.
Yeah.
So appreciate your grace with us. We have the yeah, go ahead, Rod. I see a clap and I see a hand. So I'm not quite sure which one it is.
Because I clicked the wrong thing. I apologize. I'm just curious at this point, our hub strategic plans, we're in the process of updating ours, and I would say about 80% complete, but we really aligned our hub strategic plan with Raise Up Oregon 2.0. Will the expectation be moving forward to align with these eight goals, or with Raise Up Oregon 2.0, or a combination of both?
Yeah, Rod, great question. And yes, our strategic plan is essentially, or will be aligned with Raise Up Oregon 2.0. And we're actually in the works of doing some alignment in that so that folks can see where the goals tie into that. And that's something that'll be shared later on. Actually, while I get into that, this next slide also kind of just shares some next steps. So I want to acknowledge that we know that the high level themes and the goals, are high level, right? So there's no objectives and strategies to really dig into how do we, accomplish these goals. So we're still in the process of working out and finalizing those objectives and strategies. So the plan is actually that Karina and I will be holding some times at the end of the month to invite folks to join Karina and I as we dig into and brief everybody on the full contents of the plan. And I'm hoping that by then we can also kind of just make the connection to Raise Up Oregon. That's something that me and Harriet Dichter are going to be working on in the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Harriet, but she's also a build consultant. So yes, we will be making that alignment, but also wanted to flag those dates as well. I don't have those exact dates at the top of my mind, but once Karina and I get those set up, we'll send webinar registration or Zoom meeting registrations to you all so that you all can join us. We're going to have a couple different meetings throughout the last week of April, just due to some time constraints, and we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to join us and kind of review the final contents of the plan. And we will have something posted on our website as well if those times don't work for folks.
Yeah, and just one other piece to that question, Mark, something similar actually came up. Like, what's the difference between these two? And I think just to distinguish, the Raise Up Oregon it's a plan that brings in the cross-agency partners, right? So we're talking about the other state agencies and the work that we're doing around early learning. And then this one's very specific to what DELC, right? So to DELC's policies, programs, and then the internal operations. So there's those two pieces, but just to reiterate what Gabby shared of seeking alignment with what is in Raise Up Oregon. And then the strategic plan is intended to be a 5-year plan. So there's also that distinction in terms of what DELC's vision for this work is, and also trying to make sure that it's that there's room for continued iteration as things and programs and challenges and needs and effective work, right, continues to influence the work. So just a little bit more in terms of that, but appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Karina.
I'm gonna go ahead and do breakout rooms. You have the link to the sheet, and I see some folks are in there already. So this is a little different. Last time we did a Jamboard. This time we're going with a document. So if you're in room 3, for example, you'll click on room 3, and then there's 2 pre-assigned goals. These have kind of just been randomized. Hopefully giving you an opportunity in groups around 5 to 6 people to dialogue for, we're going to aim for 15 minutes and kind of keep a little bit of a watch on the document and see how folks are doing. I know it's quick, but I know y'all are fast-paced thinkers, so we're just going to run with it. And this document will still be available to you even after your our time today. So you still have time to make comments and share if necessary.
Yeah, and just want to direct folks to the document because I know Karina was talking about it. But once you get assigned to your breakout room, if you click the link in the chat and you just hover around your breakout room number, it'll then take you to essentially 2 goals. Understand that some folks might have more to say for specific goals. We are asking you to stick to your 2, but if you have time, or you want to then kind of hop around and jot some comments down to other goals, please feel free to do so. We're going to leave this document open through, I believe, the end of the week. So folks will still have access to this even after Karina and I hop off today.
Thanks, Gabby. I think folks are kind of transitioning. I saw we're going to ask, and I was like, all right, we're going to go with it. So thanks, folks. It's 1:33 or 40. Around 1:48, 1:50 maybe. I should give us 10 minutes for
Are we
discussion.
keeping, I was going to say,
We have 30 more seconds and then everyone will be booted back. So give it a little longer. Great. Thanks everyone for sticking around. I know some folks are kind of finishing up or cleaning up sentences, so thank you. And hope some were able to take a little eye break. I learned that from a trainer once, of just every 30 minutes, you just cover your eyes and you just take a little eye break and reset your brain. And yes, how about we do? I see you, Sharon, doing it. I'm like, yes. So hopefully you all were able to just rest your eyes a little bit and close them. And I know some of us spend a lot of time on the screen, and even just to rest the vision. And if you have allergies, I'm sorry, I feel you. I'm in the valley as well, so it's been a hard week. But I saw some great comments, just kind of took a little glance at the bullet points being inserted into the document. So wanted to make a little bit of space in the couple minutes that we have left to make room for you all. If there's anything that you want to highlight, even outstanding questions that we need to circle back on, these notes will be really, really helpful for us to help develop what the strategies and objectives, right, within their strategic plan, because what we have right here are just very broad goals, but then it's the how do we actually get there that needs to a little bit more work. And so all of the great comments on what you see, what you envision around that looking like within the next 1 or 2 years. So anything folks would like to elevate or highlight, anything that had like a lot of conversation. Lisa, go ahead.
Hi, Karina. one thing, we were group 2, and we got to goal 6 around foundations, and we were really unclear. We needed a little bit more context on that one specifically, and what does that mean? I'm wondering if that means DELC's operations itself, but what does that mean?
Thanks for that. We, if the slide deck that has the goal on foundations gives a little bit more around some of the themes that were leaned on to pull for this. So not that you had to reference it, but really it was looking more at, as we think about communications being something that falls under this. So when you think about foundations, it really is the operations piece, right? How recognizing that we're a new agency and that there's still a lot of operational components and policies that need to be defined and that need to be implemented. So, but you're right, the goal itself is very generic. So I understand that it was a little more difficult to decipher.
Yeah, and just sharing the slide with it. And I know that those aren't all the engagement themes that tie into it either, but just wanted to pull it up for folks to glance at as well, just for that additional context.
Donna, did you have something to add?
No.
Oh. I know Gabby has to jump, so Gabby, I am going to dismiss you. Go do what you have to do. But any other folks who have, just general questions. I don't want to go through every goal because I know we don't have time to go through every goal, but Gabby and I are definitely taking the time to review these. And again, if there's anything that you want to include more about, or if there was a goal that wasn't assigned to your group, but you have ideas, please do go to that goal, jot down your thoughts about it as well. That's really important for us as well. If this was a way for us to get feedback on all goals and wanting to get ideas on those. But again, please do take the time if you're interested in looking through those, adding some comments. Appreciate your participation. You'll hear more from Gabby and myself, or once we create some sessions, we're thinking we'll create some meetings and invite folks to run through the next iteration, the next draft of the strategic plan. Currently don't plan on doing another round of conversations as we have. So I know you've been following this, and we just want to make sure to keep you in the loop, but also want to respect the amount of time that you all have within these meetings. So if you're interested in seeing that next version, that next iteration, please do join us, and we'll make sure to get that information to you. So thank you. How'd I do on time, Maria? Back to you.
Good. Thank you, Karina. We're going to move right along, and I'm going to pass it over to Kate and Jeremy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Dennison. I'm the new Government Affairs Manager here at DELC. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, good. And I'm here with my partner, Jeremy Wartz, who is going to be running the slide deck today. I joined DELC recently from DOJ. I was most recently a policy advisor to the Attorney General, and I worked on just about every policy area except for education. But so I have a lot to learn, but I was a direct care provider in my past, and I have 3 little kids, and I care so deeply about this group of children that we serve. And thank you so much for your work. And I'm just really pleased to be here today. So I'll just jump right in to our slide deck if you're able to share, Jeremy. All right. So the purpose of this presentation is just to kind of preview what we're working on for the 2025 legislative session and gather feedback. I know that the session, like January, is kind of far away, but we're really kind of in the throes of development right now as an agency. We're an executive branch agency under the governor's office, so I just have to throw in the disclaimer that nothing that I'm going to talk about today is set in stone. We ultimately need to get approval from the governor's office to move forward with any of our proposals. So I'm going to try to keep things very high level to save time, so we have time to gather feedback at the end. And if it's okay, I would really like to hold off on questions to the end so I can get through the slides and then hear from you. Next slide, please. So state agencies like DELC can seek approval from the governor's office to request legislative concepts or LCs during the odd number year sessions that run from about January to June. And LCs are proposed law changes. They get introduced as bills. Policy option packages or POPs are budget requests for any type of new funding or work or positions that the agency doesn't already have. So that's what we talk about when we say POP. We're at the beginning stages of our LC and POP development, so there's a lot of details to iron out yet, and we can always come back to another meeting and dig into anything that I previewed today. Next slide. So this one's pretty straightforward. Governor Kotek has prioritized early learning as part of our agenda. Agency concept and budget development is a collaboration between our agency, the governor's office, and the Department of Administrative Services, CFO. Right now, we're in phase 2 of development. We just got clearance to start previewing our proposals, and then we'll submit them to the Department of Administrative Services at the end of this month. After that, we'll just continue to do some more development work and review by the governor's office, and our work will continue throughout the summer and fall with final decisions made at the end of the year. Next slide. Now I'm going to go through some of our legislative proposals. They're quite primarily technical fixes because we're a new agency and we really just want to work on doing a fabulous job with the programs that we currently administer. Next slide. So there's a bill in 2023 that would have instituted a statewide Dolly Parton Imagination Library program. DELC received funding for the program through a separate budget bill, but ultimately House Bill 2872, the policy bill, failed. So there's really no statutory authority for the program right now. We've been able to contract with the Dollywood Foundation for the current pot of money, and that work is underway, but we do need statutory authority to govern the program into the future. So we're planning to introduce the 2023 legislation with some really minor tweaks. Next slide. House Bill 3198 from 2023 created the Early Learning Success Initiative and Birth Through 5 Literacy Plan. The plan is intended to expand culturally specific programs for children 0 to 5, provide training and coaching for direct service staff, and develop and expand language revitalization efforts by the federally recognized Indian tribes in Oregon. DELC must distribute the grants through a newly established Birth Through 5 Literacy Fund. House Bill 3198 did not grant the Early Learning Council rulemaking authority to develop a new program rule set that would develop the program and implement all of the allowable uses of the funds. So we're currently planning to distribute them through the current Early Childhood Equity Fund and KPI grant programs. This concept would provide the Early Learning Council with that rulemaking authority and then create a new grant program that meets all of the allowable uses of the funds. Next slide. So this is a fairly technical proposal that includes 2 concepts that they're intended to align licensing statutes across all provider types. This will allow us to do what we've been doing in a less burdensome way for both DELC and providers. The first change will allow all provider types to seek an exception to a licensing requirement similar to what is currently provided in the statute for registered family. It will allow some flexibility, and the provider will still have to show in a request for an exception that they can meet the requirement in a different way or that the rule doesn't apply. And then the second change would remove statutory ratios that are currently in the registered family statute. This is the only provider type that lists the specific ratios for each age group. The overall NUT cap on the number of children in care would not change. This just will allow us some flexibility to, for instance, allow an infant child to join their sibling at a specific facility. Next slide. So the measure that created the early childhood suspension and expulsion program did not give DELC explicit enforcement authority to enforce the ban. It also did not grant the Early Learning Council rulemaking authority to grant any exceptions to the ban. This concept will provide Early Learning Council with that rulemaking authority and also allow DELC enforcement using our current graduated approach that we use for other types of licensing violations. The changes in this concept are all detailed in that report that we released around the beginning of this year. I imagine you're familiar with it, but if you need it to be recirculated, let us know. Next slide. We have a placeholder concept, which means that the details are yet to be developed, but this one relates to the Tribal Early Learning Tribal Advisory Committee recommendations. For some context, in 2021, the legislature passed House Bill 2055, which established the Tribal Early Learning Hub and the Tribal Advisory Committee to design the hub. DELC's been working with the tribal nations through the Tribal Advisory Committee to define the future of the hub and design a tribal early learning program. We are meeting this month. Next week will be the first meeting to really dig into pulling together some statutory changes that reflect the tribe's intent. So stay tuned for more details. Next slide. So now I'm going to preview some budget requests that we're considering for 2025. This is not an exhaustive list, but particular items where we would love your feedback. Next slide. We have some workforce related funding proposals to build capacity in core areas where it's most needed. We have a POP to ensure that we have more regional capacity for ECSEPP in order for early learning and care programs to have the supports they need before the ban on suspension and expulsion becomes effective in July 2026. Additional funding would build training on anti-bias approaches, racial equity and trauma-informed care, and expand technical assistance in infant and early learning childhood mental health consultation throughout the state. We have a child care infrastructure fund workforce proposal to increase supports that promote accessibility and interest in the early education profession among all levels and positions, and strengthen and sustain ongoing technical assistance for programs accessing the infrastructure funds. And then finally, House Bill 2991 directed DELC to commission an independent study to identify barriers to a high quality early childhood workforce and provide guidance for future professional development. We have a funding request to continue the House Bill 2991 work and implement strategies identified in the report that is forthcoming. Next slide. So we have some proposals aimed at serving more Oregonians in areas where research is showing that we have gaps. A big one is we are planning to ask to expand Baby Promise. The program has only ever received federal funding, which has prevented it from expanding beyond the 3 regions that it currently serves. Expanding the program to additional communities will increase access to infant toddler care. This proposal won't make the program statewide, but it will expand it to additional communities. And then related to the employment-related daycare program, in 2024, the legislature made some important investments to help stabilize ERDC. We have a POP for 2025 that will help increase that ERDC sustainable caseload and hopefully take some folks off the wait list. And then finally, we have a policy option package that will accompany the Tribal Advisory Committee recommendations. Next slide. These proposals are geared towards serving current populations better. We have a POP to invest in research. Through a federal preschool development grant, DELC has been able to conduct an annual household child care and provider survey for the last 3 years. The survey has provided unique and invaluable input on the needs of families and providers and has helped us inform rulemaking, program development, licensing practices, coaching, and professional workforce needs. The grant is ending, so we're asking for additional research funding to continue this work. We are requesting some additional funds to expand the birth through 5 literacy plan. And then we have a programs POP to increase or enhance access to high quality early learning programs that DELC currently provides throughout the state. This is kind of runs the gamut. And then finally, DELC supports the Department of Education's request to increase reimbursement to child care providers for participating in the child and adult food care or child and adult care food care program. I think that's a transposition there. The end of the, oh wait, no, child and adult care food program. I don't know. At the end of the federal pandemic aid has made this program challenging for child care providers to take advantage of. So we're supporting that request. And then next, that's really the end of the presentation. I know it was a lot of detail, but what I really was hoping to do today is gather your feedback on some of these key questions. Is there really anything that you're hoping we would ask for? What barriers would you like us to address? When you're thinking about workforce and access to services, are there needs that you would like us to focus on? Happy to take any other feedback or questions, with the caveat that I'm new and I can't answer every question, but I can always follow up with answers later. Anybody?
I wonder if you can speak a little bit to timeline, because all of these things will be obviously put forward in the session that ends June 2025. So as far as implementation of any of these things, we're talking 2026 most likely.
So the funding that we will be seeking for in the 2025 session, I think this is what your question was, is for the next biennium. So that by the 25 to 27 biennium begins, as you're saying, right, July of 2025. And then, which is, it's kind of crazy that we have to begin work on the next biennium right when the current one starts, but that's how it works. But we actually have to develop all these proposals and submit them to the governor's office by the end of this month for like a first round. So that's why I'm coming to you today.
No, I appreciate that. I'm just wondering in terms of like thinking about what that means for early learning hubs and when some of this work rolls out, thinking about expansion of these services and supports.
Yeah.
And, really, when does this land at our table?
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy process, and it's hard to predict the future, but we do have until I think end of May to finalize all of this. So we really, if you have a crystal ball or you can think of anything that everybody needs now, I think it's worth including. Begonia, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm really curious about this baby promise expansion and how does it look like, not only in terms of number of slots, but does it come with at this point, like are you guys planning to include like a startup cost or like hiring, retaining support for employees, benefits, all those things? What do you have on mind? Just a basic slot or something more robust, like to support the providers and as an incentive for many of them to enter now also?
I don't know the answer to that specific question, so that's when I'll have to get back to you, but I'll make sure to do that. I'll at least make sure Maria gets the answer out to the group after I have time to follow up. Thank you so much. Chris?
Thank you. I don't know if this is possible, but there are two things that I would love to see. A couple years ago, there was funding, or maybe just a year ago, for parent advisory councils. And so we started our parent advisory council, and it's incredible and really beneficial to the hub. And then the funding went away. So reinstituting funding for parent advisory councils. And then I would just put a plug in for increased hub coordination funds across the board. I think what I hear in so many meetings is that all hubs are just struggling to meet the deliverables and the work that needs to be done in our communities, and we don't get increased funding.
I do believe that there's a placeholder for ELC recommendations around hub coordination, so I'll definitely make sure. And if you have any detail to add to that, let me know too. You've got my email here on this slide, so thank you so much for that.
Hey, welcome to this work. It's great to have you. I've heard great things about you from Cassie specifically. And I think that was sort of in line with my question or wondering curiosity with these slides is they're super high level, which at this point is entirely appropriate given all the work that needs to happen to flush them out. But I would just really encourage the department to think about with each and every one of these, hopefully, if it's done really well and right, in my opinion, it needs to have a hub touch point at some place, and that needs to be recognized and it needs to be funded to the appropriate level of work. So which each one of these, I think that needs to happen, and thrilled to hear that the council will have a placeholder and perhaps that will go in there. And I also hope that the department is really behind that work as well.
Right, yeah, thank you so much. I don't know if I gave the little disclaimer when I went into the POPs that this was not an exhaustive list either. These are just areas where we're really seeking feedback now, but I look forward to sharing details on every single one of our budget requests and seeking feedback on all of them at a certain point too. Some of them are just kind of boring, like we're asking for tech, an IT project, something like that. Any other?
In the chat, it says, what happened to the Early Learning Educators Scholarship Program? HB 3561, I think it passed but wasn't funded.
I don't know the answer to that. Was that was a 2023 bill, right?
Yeah, I think it was a 2023 bill, and I think they were trying to get funding in the short session and they didn't get it. I just wondered if that's staying on the radar for workforce development moving forward.
I believe so. I think Alyssa and I have a meeting with HEC to talk about some of these things at the end of the month, and I will get back to you on that one as well. That's on my list to follow up on.
Any other questions for Kate?
Please don't hesitate to email me or if you have comments on any of this or anything else, I'm always available, and I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Jeremy. With that, we have a few minutes left. Rachel Elliott had just a quick overview about just her role. I know we see her wear many hats as she comes into our space. So she just wanted to give a quick little overview of just the different spaces that she's in. So Rachel, go ahead.
Thank you. And I'll try not to rush through. I'm hoping I can be in this space with you more often and have dialogue and engagement with you. So if you don't know me, I'm Rachel Elliott. I'm the Head Start Collaboration Director, that's the title the Office of Head Start gives this position. At DELC, my title is Head Start Collaboration Specialist. So basically, I am funded through the Office of Head Start. I write a grant every year, so I have funding for this position. And DELC, whatever agency the state decides to put the Head Start Collaboration Office, does the non-federal share of the 20%. So basically, I have many bosses, including DELC, Office of Head Start, and our Region 10 regional office in Seattle. So I answer to a lot of priorities, and but my first and foremost love and priority is making sure our early learning and care programming is aligned and less burdensome to not only all of us implementing it, but also our children and families trying to access. So I'll just do a couple slides because I know you've been talked at a little bit, a lot today. And I want to honor that too. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, so just as another overview, there are 54 of us, Head Start Collaboration directors nationally, including Puerto Rico, and we have a specific Head Start Collaboration Director for migrant seasonal programming, as well as our Alaska Native and tribal communities across the nation. So we're quite diverse, and there's only one of us in each state. So we're considered our own office, which is kind of funny with all the partnerships we were asked to do. So, I'll just skip to this. So we were recently had a meeting with all of our collab directors across the state, and one of my colleagues mentioned that she felt like our office is like a tinker toy. We're making connections across agencies and systems, and that really pretty much sums up my role and responsibilities at DELC and the Office of Head Start is to be a conduit of information, a bridge builder. I'm a state employee at many policy tables. I'm an ambassador for Head Start and early learning and care in various internal and external tables. And with that, there's many projects and partnerships, advisory committees, et cetera, that I'm invited into that need engagement and voices from not only all of you, but the providers in the field. And so I was asking Marie at some point after I show you a couple projects that I'm engaged with to come back and really hear in your community what bullet points or what stories I need to have at certain tables I'm on to support your providers in the field and the children and families you're trying to find access and support. Does anybody have any questions so far? I just had green tea. CCR in our meeting, I had coffee, was talking too much. Now I had green tea, now I'm talking too much. So I'm not sure there's a balance for me today, but. All right. So, I should mention, under the Department of Early Learning and Care, I'm on the Program Design and Administration Office. So I'm in collaboration with the state funded programs, home visiting, center-based, family, childcare. So I'm associated with that office, but I'm across the DELC offices with partnerships and internal committees. So I'll just jump a little bit because I want to honor your time. So as I know, Rod, I think you mentioned strategic planning. A part of my work too is a type of just strategic planning as well, but my umbrella is not only what the state priorities are, like Raise Up Oregon, like Rod mentioned, but also the Head Start Collaboration Office has its own priorities. The Office of Head Start asks us to fulfill each year or each grant cycle, as well as Office of Head Start priorities. So there's kind of a layered approach to how I gather my priorities for each year. And the heaviest lift or the foundation of that is learning from all of you where some of the alignment gaps are and what bridges need to be filled. Okay. And you'll be getting this slide deck. I know on your, free time, you'd want to look back. I know. So it's all right. You'll get it. Don't worry. So here are the Head Start Collaboration Office priorities. I won't read them, but they'll be available for you again to read. But these are my foundation to my work that I have to fulfill for my grant. Okay. So this is one of the heaviest things I wanted to share with you. This is not the entire list, but some things that may touch your work and may invite some engagement or conversation with me at some point, I hope. Some of it, we had some conversations with some of you already on, especially the early learning transition check-in, the redesign of the kindergarten entry assessment, but a lot of these others we may not have touched an engagement or conversation. So my ongoing partnerships and projects, I work alongside McKinney Vento. I work a lot with early intervention, early childhood special education at ODE. I'm on a kindergarten sturdy bridge project, which is about the P3 alignment work with ODE and other state partners, really looking into that. I'm on the state leadership inclusion team. I'm on the home visiting collaborative. I work closely with the Oregon Kinship Navigators, the Refugee and Immigrant Resettlement Program. I'm on the Northwest Pyramid Model Summit planning team, and then I'm on the System of Care Advisory Council. So I felt like a lot of these bullets may potentially be a type of engagement or conversation at some point. Maybe you can let Maria know, maybe we can reconnect and see if there's anything on this list that you feel like is a priority to talk about, that you feel like you want someone else to have a story to bring to some of the tables I'm on. So yay, I talked really fast, but I just wanted to give a quick overview. And again, the slides will be available. I also have a video that was shared with us from the Office of Head Start from 2010 that has Head Start collaboration directors talking about their role across the nation. And so I'll also link it to the notes for Maria. So if that's of interest to you, you may see some Oregon collab faces that, if you've been around a while, may be familiar to you. So that might be something exciting to see. And if you have any questions or wonderings, or you just want to have a one-on-one with me, please reach out. My email's right there. And I know I've talked to Shira before and a couple others, but would love to have a conversation with you at some point if that's of interest. I know it's of interest to me. And I bother Rod all the time too, so that's really fun. All right, well, thank you, everybody. Let me know if there's anything that comes up. And I look forward to hopefully getting some emails from you and we can connect.
Thank you, Rachel. I know we have a few minutes. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions for Rachel or anything that is coming up and you guys want to flag that is of interest that you would want to hear more of a deeper dive in one of our upcoming meetings. Feel free to raise your hand, drop it in the chat, or as you get the slides and are able to absorb it all, just feel free to reach out to me and let me know what is of interest for you guys. So thank you so much.
Yeah, Maria and I are in contact pretty often. So thank you so much for being in this space with you. And it's good to see some familiar faces.
Right. Well, I think if there's no other questions, thank you guys for joining us. And I did want to give a little shout out. Thank you to Aaron and Laura for having me out in their region last month. I really enjoyed going out there, and thank you for hosting me and just showing me around. And then Amali and Francis also invited me to their preschool marketplace event that they had at OMSI. I know Evan and Begonia are inviting me to an upcoming event that they have going on. So I really appreciate the opportunities to get out into communities. So please feel free to continue to share them with me. And I love coming out and seeing your region. So as you guys have opportunities that you think would be nice for me to come out, I would love to. So thank you all so much and have a great rest of your day. I hope you guys get to enjoy the sunshine. And yeah, thank you for bearing with us. I know it was a very heavy packed meeting. So thank you all for sticking it out. Have a good one.